Hey everybody, it's Robbie Stevens. Also, if you check out my radio show on KSN Radio, Sonoma State University's only online radio station, I am DJ Rob the Mel Guy, but I am here today with
Yuvraj the Master Singh.
And we're going to be talking about something that is not hard rock and heavy metal related because we've done a video before, and you can go and check it out. We talked about it in podcasts before this topic. Yuvraj, what is the topic? And give us the specifics also of the topic, if you may, please.
So, we're going to touch upon something that Robbie and I have often talked about, wrestling. When it comes to wrestling, right now the two biggest names are WWE and TNA. But before that, there were three. There was WCW, World Championship Wrestling, ECW, which was Eastern Championship Wrestling, then it became Extreme Championship Wrestling.
Definitely adding to the name there and giving it a unique factor.
It's probably one of the best. It's because the matches were so outlandish. And of course, WWE, formerly the WWF.
And we have to point out here, WWE over the years has acquired the WCW, ECW. So when we're talking about this and the matches, and we're also going to be talking about the wrestlers, a lot of these people now are associated with WWE, though we do have to remember they started outside. It was just because of Vince McMahon's business prowess he got these wrestlers. But let's begin. We want to individually look at each company, our pros and cons. In a way, we're going to kind of point out and even maybe make a decision on which company we thought was the best or we preferably enjoyed. But first, I think it would be fair to evaluate each one on itself.
Right.
Pros and cons by itself that way. So let's begin. I'm going to start with WCW. Ted Turner had a huge involvement in that, and then when Eric Bischoff came into it, a lot of people credit him for the fall of WCW. I'm already going to get confused, but a lot of people credit him, but he definitely worked hard. In a sense, his time, it exploded and then it fell. Raj, I'll start with you. What do you think were the pros of WCW and then the cons?
I think I'm in the camp that would say that Eric Bischoff was probably a good manager and probably a good person running. He's always had an eye for talent. He's always had an eye for the matches, and when he was the GM of Raw at WWE, that's when I would say that Raw really started to stumble after Eric Bischoff left the WWE. But I think Eric Bischoff was probably one of the higher points of WCW. And what WCW had it didn't really have the extreme matches, but what it did have was solid wrestlers. You had guys like Sting, who he's probably the foremost name on most people's tongues now, at least when it comes to WWE. People just want that one match, Sting versus The Undertaker.
He's the most in demand right now.
He was the only one at WCW that didn't make the jump on to WWE. People have to realize that when Sting first appeared at Survivor Series in 2014, that was the first time Sting was ever on WWE.
That's true. Very impressive. He held out that long. Now, what did you say some of the cons are maybe of WCW? You thought maybe they could have improved their time?
It was a solid brand. I'd say that the biggest con was that it didn't really have the wow factor that at that time, the WWF or ECW had. ECW was known for its extreme matches, and the WWF was known for its storylines. It was known for, the WWF was really at the forefront of the Attitude Era.
That's true, and I definitely think that plays into factor why WCW was not able to compete in the end. I think Eric Bischoff did a great business move, and also the whole WCW idea of the NWO. That was very creative, bringing together those wrestlers and that type of group. That was something WWE started to catch on to have a wrestling group, a faction that caused problems, that challenged, that seemed to take over from the management. That way you didn't just have an authority versus an individual figure. You had a group of wrestlers that became so powerful and dominant in the business that they needed somebody to challenge them, and perfect guy Sting. It helps build Sting's character.
The best thing about the NWO was that, unlike other groups that we've seen recently, like the Shield, the NWO were interesting. I mean, you had these personalities. You had Hulk Hogan, you had Scott Hall, you had Kevin Nash. I mean, these were interesting guys.
That was star power. You had
Right.
these great performers that were well known in a sense, and they could really work with the crowd. The Shield doesn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say also, I said, TNA, I've seen these wrestling groups. What they don't have that the NWO had, the NWO knew how to work the crowd. They knew
Right.
how to get people going.
Which is one of the most important things.
And also I want to bring out a pro that I thought WCW had was they had stars. They had people that you could see as that guy has the potential to be the champion. Those wrestlers looked like they could take control and be in the matches
Mm-hmm.
and eventually have that belt around them. Nowadays, you don't see that so much. So
Right.
that's why I think WCW, for the time, but at the same time, it became repetitive. You started to see the same things going on, and eventually a lot of those wrestlers, they wanted to move on to bigger and better things, and they jumped ship.
Right.
So that's ultimately what happened to WCW. My pros, again, I like what you said with the pros, and like you said, it just didn't have the wow factor,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. It was a solid brand.
It was, yeah.
Solid brand, and you also brought up, we were talking before camera here, the Monday Night Wars helped intertwine a lot of that
Right,
stuff.
well, I mean, that was probably, Vince McMahon, I believe he bought WCW and ECW in March of 2001, which is, that's when the Monday Night Wars really began, ran for 5-6 months, and those were, 5-6 months that the people were just hooked. I mean, yeah, this was something that you hadn't seen before. You had the three big names in wrestling come together.
Exactly.
The intertwining is the intertwining. Bringing together separate universes, I guess you could say, is really. People saw the dream matches. People, when you do something like this, you bring in. You have the fans that just watch WWE, the fans that just watch WCW, and the ones that just watch ECW. When you put all these companies together, you bring in fans from three different sets, and you have a great, a great relationship there, I guess you could say, where people are really invested in the matches.
Definitely increased, again, wrestling, the industry. It really helped propel that industry. Unfortunately, WCW, ECW went out, but Vince McMahon, he saw an opportunity to still give them a shot at getting recognition. But I'm going to bring up a little later in this video some of my feelings, how Vince McMahon treated some of those wrestlers in WCW and ECW when he acquired them. Maybe not doing as much as he could have, but I'll get to that later on. Let's go ECW now before we get to WWE. I'm really excited to talk about ECW because when you watch the matches, there is nothing to say that these are, boring.
Mm-hmm.
There's excitement, there's creativity.
The most exciting of the
it's
three.
Unbelievable, and the characters were so real. These were characters that you can honestly say reflected people in society or had a reflection of what was going on in society. Paul Heyman, a visionary, he saw good pop culture, he saw what was going on, and he was able to translate that. Great writer, great booker, everything about him. So in a way, that's my pro right off the bat. ECW
had good
was there
right from the beginning.
It had the momentum, and it also tapped into the fan base. It knew its audience. So those are my pros. Kind of, what are you going to say with ECW here?
The biggest pros, obviously, the matches. That is what was at the forefront of ECW. WCW and WWE, they paid lip service. You had the talkers, but ECW, you had the talkers, but not only could they just talk the talk, they walked the walk.
Outperform. That's what they could do.
In terms of matches, I'd say ECW probably has some of the best. Just because they had some of them. Look at the people on ECW. You had Rob Van Dam. High flying. He kind of like Jeff Hardy, but the biggest name obviously Tommy Dreamer.
Again,
the guy
brought
it every day, brings it every day. In fact,
great angle. He was a guy that kept fighting. He usually would get knocked down. He wouldn't. I loved how with Raven, Tommy Dreamer lost a lot to Raven because that was the whole setup. He never seemed to get his day against Raven. Raven always had him. I think Raven's psychology and the way that character came across, that just is insane.
Right.
And then the character that I have to say beats all the characters in a sense is the Sandman. coming down from the audience, drinking a beer, kendo stick, and just being this totally crazy, white trashy dude that would do anything in a match. His matches were always extreme. And I also, again, I like how, again, he has the beer, he's drinking it, and he's throwing it around.
Yeah.
Who does that after, right?
Nobody. I mean,
Stone Cold, though.
Stone
Cold started definitely doing that. So I got to look at that as ECW was always there. It's just didn't get the payday or the recognition.
And of course, I mean, it's in the name Extreme Championship. Every match was an Extreme Rules match.
That's true.
I mean, I think that's why people were so attracted to it. I mean, you just didn't get that on WC. I mean, WWE, it had those kind of matches. You had the ladder
It was pushed
matches.
to do those matches
by ECW. ECW set the bar for wild matches, entertaining matches. I mean, like, you can watch a guy fight another guy with no stipulation. I mean, they have to keep it in the ring. They have to keep it sanitary. But ECW said, screw sanitary. Bring in the kendo sticks. Bring in the barbed wire bats. Bring in the nails. Throw people on the nails. Go through the tables. Go through the rings. I mean, ECW was exciting.
Again, the Dudley Boys, get the tables out.
The Dudley Boys, get the tables out. I mean, 3D into the tables. It's insane.
And that's definitely cons. Unfortunately, it just did not get.
It never got the viewership that
the backing
or WWE
syndication. I also just think a lot of people. Again, if you're a broadcaster or you're a company, you're going to be like Extreme Championship Wrestling. People at that time were very sensitive. But then WWE slowly started to do what ECW was doing, but on a mainstream level, and profited.
Right.
The whole Attitude Era, in my opinion, is a response to ECW. Because Vince was feeling the push. Even though ECW was no threat, really, you could say, he did still, because Vince McMahon, I think, has a world, and if you challenge it, he'll react.
I think ECW probably had the most excited fans, so 3.
Most loyal. Like, they'll probably be the people commenting right here, giving us the most shit because they enjoy it. And that's what I like. They enjoyed it. So I'm going to say, not many cons. ECW, and I'm going to throw my hat out there and say, that's what I like right there.
I think, it's unfortunate that ECW, we no longer have ECW. I think that's really part of the bigger push of the WWE to go towards a more sanitary kind, appeal to kids, kind of Golden Boy John Cena kind of wrestling matches. I mean, there's no space for the ECW kind of matches in this PG era of the wrestling.
Alrighty here, so let's get to it. Last company, WWE. Pros. They've had over the years great performers, great matches. The Undertaker alone could hold that company, you could say.
Well, I think he does.
You think he does?
That's really the only thing that keeps me even sort of locked into WWE now, because you know that the Undertaker,
really?
his contract.
I thought you were a huge fan of Fandango. I'm kidding. The dancer. The dancer that beat Jericho, remember? That was a great idea. Whoever wrote that, you deserve a raise. But no, I agree with
fired, actually.
But I agree with you. The Undertaker alone, he keeps people interested. And when, again, Brock Lesnar losing the Undertaker, that's already going to be a con of mine, because you were so down. The last thing you wanted to do is kick yourself even further.
By ending the streak of the one performer without fail never fails to put on a show.
And where's Lesnar right now?
Undertaker always delivers.
And what's he doing right now after the WrestleMania we just saw? Him and Rollins and Reigns, that whole incident.
I'm still baffled by the decision to choose Lesnar. If you're going to choose somebody and make the Undertaker lose to them, you choose somebody that is loyal to the company.
Yeah.
And that you're going to try to build them up into a megastar.
Yeah.
You don't do it for Lesnar.
But with WWE, my ultimate saying is the pro is they have the history. We can go back to the days of Jake the Snake Roberts, Macho Man, and Savage, the WWF.
A lot of iconic moments. 1984.
That stuff.
Hulk Hogan's body slamming Andre the Giant. 1998, I believe. Undertaker throwing Mankind off the cell in that legendary Hell in a Cell match. Probably the most memorable moment in sports entertainment.
Historic. Unfortunately, as a company, they've lost that because their current system is not really even anything that I could say is going towards what they used to. It's very much like, as you brought up, the PC, the John Cena's. I will say I've seen some matches where they have tables, they have Kato sticks, they're trying to introduce it, but I still feel there's a hesitation to really invest and push forward with the company.
Right, I mean,
and that's where they can do that now though, because they're not being pushed. They don't have ECW, they don't have WCW. All they have, you bring up TNA, but I'm going to say NXT is their competition, and they own NXT.
Right.
So WWE has nobody. They're a monopoly on wrestling entertainment, people. That's what a monopoly is. They have nobody to push them. They're going to be doing stuff that really is just, oh, well, past things didn't work out, so we're going to do this now. That's their decisions. It's based on the company. Oh, well, this is what we did before. Okay. Moving on. You know, that's what I feel.
And
it's not the same heart.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't have the heart anymore. I mean, you don't feel invested in any of the characters anymore because there's really no interesting characters left. I mean, I
mean, Dean Ambrose is another character, and maybe Dolph Ziggler we could throw out.
Right, you have two great talents here that you should be building up.
And then there's a guy in NXT I saw last night, Neville. He's a high flyer. I thought, okay, this is interesting. You know, they're going to start going towards maybe high flyers now. I hear a lot of people talking that's something that the days of the big guys, the Undertakers, your Kanes,
are coming to an end.
They're starting to come to an end. They're more invested because look at Daniel Bryan, the whole underdog story that worked out. That's great and all, but unfortunately with those characters, there's only so far they can go, and they really can't. Again, can you see a guy like that in a barbed wire match versus like Abyss, or versus somebody that's big?
Yeah.
They're going to be in certain matches. Sabu could do it,
right? But
I just don't see it. It's going to be a very PC oriented. And another part about WWE, too much talking, too much talking.
Not enough fight. I mean, I think it's
overproduced in my opinion. The writing is just. Whoever writes for it now, it's almost like it's just a TV show. It's not wrestling entertainment.
Right. I mean, I think the evolution of WWE and TNA to this point, I think this is the best case for, the people to really start looking for more independent wrestling companies. I mean,
I'm going to say that
focus
too.
on look at the local matches, look at the smaller companies, look at the independent circuit. I mean.
That's where the talent is going to start
matches there.
growing.
I mean, you look at Japan wrestling or Mexico. I mean, those guys still got it.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, a lot of these guys at TNA or WWE, a lot of them got their start on Central America and Southern America circuits, as well as Japanese circuits. I mean, Chris Jericho, his first big break was in Mexico. That's where he that's where he had his roots. Chris Benoit, he was on the Japanese circuit for a while.
So I definitely agree that you have to check out the other forms because WWE right now should not be the only one. It's not the company you should invest everything in. If you are a fan of wrestling, the independents are something to look at because you could see talents that one day might go out to go on to WWE, or there could be something new one day. I don't know what the future holds. We don't.
Right.
But as of now, WWE is the mainstay. I personally would have loved to have seen an ECW on the top, close to WWE.
I agree.
Being able to be syndicated, the characters that you still have the same. I don't think they, again, tone it down or not. Have it on TV late at night like they would probably.
Right.
It's just as graphic
when it comes to toning it
some
down.
of those TV shows on.
The premise for wrestling is two guys beating each other up. It's not kid friendly to begin with.
I mean, I think you see more graphic content on the History Channel and stuff. With the new TV shows they have and all that stuff. I've seen stuff. I'm thinking.
You watch something like the one. What was that? Well, the one where they dressed the kids up, like those children like beauty pageants. That's disturbing.
That's disturbing too. Why don't you put a filter on that?
Seriously.
So I think to end this video, My pick is, out of the companies, I prefer ECW, that
I prefer
style.
ECW. I'd rather have ECW back.
ECW. Unfortunately, WWE is the mainstay. What do you people think out there? Which one? WCW, ECW, WWE? Maybe there's an opinion you want to give a shout out to. We like to hear that too, as we say. Promote, the up and coming smaller circuit, just like how I always talk on my radio show about promoting the up and coming young artists. I think it's important. Definitely. Good point to bring up,
the
Raj.
next generation.
Exactly. Well, thanks for checking us out. Robbie Stevens here.
Yuvraj the Master Singh signing off.
Later.